Today we're going to be talking about the NFL predictions for Week 9. We're going to get that out of the way. Tomorrow we'll cover Game 7 of the World Series with Brian Luis. We'll cover some other hot topics, including his mock draft on Inscriber Mag. But today we're just going to have a chill pick'em type show. I did message Thomas. If he wants to call in, he can. If not, we'll just take care of business and get everything out of the way. I've noticed when I work with Joey or you, whenever there's two people on, we seem to fly through topics quicker. That's one thing I've noticed, even though I love it whenever we get whoever to call in, you know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But, hey, that's not the fun, though, right?
Yeah, tomorrow night's Thursday night game features the Bills and the Jets, and on Friday we are going to have an insult master contest where Thomas insults both fan bases, and Ryan and I debate which insults are more savage. Because Thomas is a Dolphins fan, and I just figured that would be funny to have Thomas going insult master on the Bills and Jets, and us debating which insults are more savage. I just think that's something he'd enjoy, and that just seems like something that would be funny.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's always fun to go with that.
But we'll get to this Bills-Jets game because Cordy Glenn's back at left tackle, and ever since he returned, LaShawn McCoy has been tearing it up. I mean, this is a guy who had no rushing touchdowns heading into Buffalo's bye week, but he's been red hot since the bye week with back-to-back 100-yard games versus Tampa Bay and Oakland. Whereas the Jets, Josh McCown's completion percentage went up from 69.3 to 70.5. He's second in the league in completion percentage behind Alex Smith, and if he keeps playing this well, I mean, the Jets are going to have to keep him for another year and develop their quarterbacks rather than draft someone like Lamar Jackson or somebody really special, and they're going to end up missing out. So McCown's playing well. Their rookie safeties are lethal. Jamal Adams, Marcus May. And I think these safeties can limit how good Tyrod is with the deep passing game. Tyrod's really going to have to get into it with these short and medium, intermediate routes. Kelvin Benjamin probably will play in the game against the Saints rather than this game, even though the Buffalo Bills did trade for him. But this is the thing. I have the Buffalo Bills finishing the year 8-8 with the Ravens and the Raiders, and they're on the outside of the playoff picture ahead of Oakland as the 7th best team in the AFC. But I picked the Jets to win this game 21-16. The Bills are favored by 3, and with them being 5-2, with them facing the Jets and the Saints at home, if they can win both of those games, they're going to be in a great position to control their own destiny in the AFC as far as challenging the Patriots and getting the wild card. So that's huge for the Bills right now, and they've got a ton of momentum. So common sense would say pick the Bills, but I'm going to go with the Jets 21-16. Looking at some of the other writers on the site, Tanya was the only other person to take the Jets, and the majority of our staff is going with the Buffalo Bills. Oren, Jesse, Jason, they're all taking the Bills here. So the Bills are favored. Do you think LaShawn McCoy keeps playing at a red-hot level and the Bills win, or do you think the Jets can pull the upset, Ryan?
I think that LaShawn McCoy can definitely continue to play at a red-hot level. I mean, the Bills have continued to play with momentum. I mean, they actually have literally proved me wrong, Chris. I mean, I think that they have a very strong chance to win the game. I think it's going to be like a 24-21 range. Well, no, probably 31-28 because their defense will actually a little bit. How do you feel about that score prediction?
I think it's going to be more of a defensive game, but this is the thing. Buffalo, I predicted back in July that we would see Buffalo start like 6-2 or 6-3, and then they would collapse down the stretch, and Mark's team would miss the playoffs at the last minute in such savage fashion. And that prophecy's sort of holding up right now. We'll see if it holds up as the season progresses, or if the Bills actually get to the playoffs and prove me wrong, because Thomas said this franchise is cursed. And they don't look like a cursed franchise. They actually look like a future playoff team with what they did to your Broncos and the Falcons earlier in the year. So we'll see if things hold up.
Well, I guess what I'm curious then is, do you trust the Bills secondary? Right now, you have Anderson on the Jets, who has 435 yards and 3 touchdowns with 27 receptions. So really, does the question become, do you trust the Bills secondary, or do you trust the Jets secondary? Because Tyrod, 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 1,300 yards.
Yeah, that's a great question and an excellent talking point, Ryan, because Morris Claiborne's played well at corner with the two rookie safeties I mentioned, and Tre'Davious White was excellent against the Falcons in that one game, even though he struggled against A.J. Green. So, if Tre'Davious White plays like he did during the first 4 games, I don't know if there's a single team in the NFL that can beat the Buffalo Bills, because he's playing fantastic football. And if he plays like he's done early in the year against the Jets, Buffalo will win this game. But Robbie Anderson's another player to keep an eye on because he might make just enough big plays to stretch the field and give the Jets a fighting chance. And with McCown completing 70% of his passes, it's hard to dislike the Jets if he avoids turnovers, which is why I'm taking the Jets. Plus, we're due for a Buffalo game where they just choke and completely let everyone down, which is another reason I'm taking the Jets. But I would not be surprised if the Bills win this. Either way, it's going to be a close game, it's going to be a fun game, and we're going to have a blast talking about it on Friday.
Oh, absolutely. But just remember, LaShawn McCoy had 151 yards against Oakland, and Oakland's defense is pretty tough, if you know what I mean.
He also had over 100 yards versus Tampa, but he struggled early in the year. But I think that was due to Glenn being absent until the bye week. Him being injured at left tackle, because he's a huge part of that offense. He was a great run blocker at Georgia, had great tape. And I think the reason LaShawn got off to a rough start was because they didn't have him. They have him, they have LaShawn, and they have their focal points of that offense. So for that reason, I have to think they will win.
All right. I guess this then, when they played the Jets in Week 1, 110 yards.
Yes, I have not set my picks in the Bantle Fantasy Yahoo Pick'em League, which Jason is kind enough to host. I know the Jets are underdogs, but I'm not ready to lay down any confidence points on this game. I will come back to this game maybe later in the show, or you know what? We'll go with since 2 people picked the Jets, we'll go with 3 confidence points out of 13 at the moment. I may adjust this later, but we'll go with 3 confidence points out of 13 on the Jets, because I'm just not sure if the Jets, this is a smart thing to bet more than 2 to 3 points in terms of confidence, because this game could go either way, and with Buffalo being favored, it's just not smart to bet that many confidence points. The next game's probably the game I'm going to be wagering all my confidence points on, and that game involves the Indianapolis Colts and the Houston Texans in Houston. And I'm looking at these 2 teams here. The Houston Texans look really good on paper this year, and they've been disappointing defensively, but their offense has really bailed them out. And this is a team favored by 12.5 on the point spread, with $5.75 being the minimum bet, $8.75 being the max bet. It's the highest point spread of the week, and you're looking at Houston here. I'm going to go 28-10 Texans. The Colts don't have Luck. They don't have Malik Hooker. They don't have their left guard, Jack Mewhort. The Colts, there were rumors about them moving guys at the trade deadline, even though they didn't do that. And this is one of the few Draft Utopia locks of the week. We had 2 locks last week. I think we have 4 this week, even though it looked like we'd have 8 at one point. So this is one of the locks of the week, and I just can't pick against Deshaun Watson after how well he's played.
I agree with you 100%, Chris. I mean, you really can't argue against Deshaun Watson, especially going against the weak Indianapolis defense, and then on top of that, you have Andrew Luck not playing as well. So, I mean, this game technically has the Texans written to win, especially, like you said, Deshaun Watson, the quarterback, is a pretty key position, and he seems to be playing it pretty well. So I'll actually say 31-10, the Texans winning.
Yeah, I mean, I know the Colts have Vonta Davis. They've got Rashawn Melvin. They even drafted Quincy Wilson. They're not starting him because Melvin's played so well and beat him out in the preseason, but both Melvin and Davis are in contract years. The Colts are only going to have the cap money to bring one of them back. I'm amazed they didn't try to make a deal for Davis at the deadline, knowing this. So I don't know where the Colts are, but with all the flux, the current state they're in, the injuries, this is a team that looks like a 5-11 squad. And I only say that because Luck might come back later in the year even though they should just keep tanking for a top 5 pick?
Yeah, I can see that.
Alright, I still think they'll pick in the top 10, though. The next game features the Cincinnati Bengals and the Jacksonville Jaguars. And with the Texans, that is, everyone else took the Texans as well. Even Ryan took the Texans. So I'm going to tell you guys, with the Texans, we're going to lock them in at 13 on the confidence pool. Their Astros scored 13 runs in Game 5 as well. So we're going to lock the Texans in at 13. And we're going to save that pick. But moving on to the next game here, we've got Jacksonville and Cincinnati. And this game is in Jacksonville. The Jaguars are coming off a bye week, and I think it's going to be a shootout. Cincinnati probably won't win this game, but Jacksonville's phenomenal defense is coming off a bye week. I think Bortles is going to continue to play at a high level. Leonard Fournette's playing like a rookie of the year. The over-under in this game is 39.5, which baffles me because I think we're going to see both teams combined for 50 points. I've got the Jaguars winning this 27-23, with Cincinnati's offense playing surprisingly effective against one of the NFL's more formidable defenses in Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville's going to win, and this was originally going to be a lock of the week, but Jesse Lucas changed his pick from Jacksonville to Cincinnati at the last minute. So Jesse's playing devil's advocate now. He does a good job, and he's the overall points leader. So if the Bengals win, his lead gets bigger. But overall, this year, I'm going to take the Jaguars. I just think they want it more. Andy Dalton, he won on his birthday. We get that. But the Jaguars are 0-3 in Everbank Field, which is pretty ironic. Their 2 home games came against the Week 2 game against the Titans and the Week 6 game against the Rams, because all the games they won are on the road, even the London game, which is pretty ironic, Ryan. It's pretty ironic that that's how their season's been. That's how their outlook's been. I just feel like that's such a strange coincidence.
I guess that's a coincidence, but I do have to say this about the game. I do think that it's going to be a close game. I think that Jacksonville is going to lose, actually. I'll take the Texans.
You mean the Bengals?
No. I'm sorry. I was looking at the stats for the when they had played a pretty tough defense back in Week 1. I'm actually going to take the Jacksonville Jaguars over the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, to me, I feel like Leonard Fournette's actually going to have a 150-yard game with maybe even a 40-plus yard touchdown run. And the only reason for that, though, is look at how well he played against the Texans defense as well back there. So you got to give him credit on that. So I'll say 28-25, and I'll give the edge to Jacksonville on that.
Yeah, the thing is with the Jaguars-Texans Week 1 game, Texas Governor Ted Cruz attended that game, so I blame Ted Cruz for the Texans' misfortunes in that Week 1 contest.
Really, the blame could shift either way.
Well, the Texans thought that was an easy game, even though Joey was right and picked the Jaguars to win. So I think the Jaguars have to be a heavy favorite. I don't know how many. I think we have at least 4 different locks on the site, so I'm going to put Jacksonville at 8 in the confidence pool right now, but I may go back and adjust that later in the show, depending on time constraints. I think the next game is New Orleans-Tampa Bay. I can't say for certain, but I'm pretty certain that that's the next game. It is. And it's in New Orleans. And this is my upset. I have Tampa Bay winning this game. I still have them at 10-6 in my projections. And they benefit from a really easy schedule. They get the Saints this week, and if they can end their winning streak and they can sweep the Saints and they beat the Dolphins and Jets, they're back at 5-5. They can beat the Packers without Aaron Rodgers. They're still in this thing. I'm not going to lose faith in this team yet. They might turn the corner. I know it sounds crazy, and maybe after Week 11, if they get back to 5-5, we'll move them into the 16-ish, 17-ish range. But I still think this team can turn it around. There's still just enough time, and I'm not ready to give up on this team. So Drew Brees, he has the tools to carve this defense if he gets enough time in the pocket. Lattimore has the talent and skill set to blanket Mike Evans, and Mike Evans is the focal point of this offense, but Sean Jackson, they got some other players. I'm going to go 24-20. Tampa Bay pulls the upset. Everyone else at Draft Utopia, Oren, Tanya, Jesse, Jason are all taking the Saints. Never mind, Jesse's actually taking Tampa Bay in the upset too. So, yeah, but I'm going Tampa Bay with the upset here.
First off, I guess I wish I knew what kind of Kool-Aid you guys were drinking, because I wish I could be sold on that. I just don't see it. I see New Orleans kind of running away with this thing a little bit. Was it at New Orleans, right?
It's at New Orleans is the home team. They are the home
team. Oh my
team.
God, Chris! How can you doubt New Orleans as the home team, especially when it's like division, when it's an NFC type game like that? I mean, these teams could very well meet in the playoffs. So I gotta say though, I see New Orleans winning this thing in a shootout, probably 38 to. I'll give the kid credit, 34.
New Orleans is a 97%. 97% of Yahoo users are picking New Orleans to win this game, whereas only 3% are picking Tampa Bay. Yet 2 out of 5 people on my site are actually going with Tampa Bay, including myself, which is just ironic. So I'm going to put Jacksonville down as 8, and I'm going to put Tampa Bay down as 1 in the confidence pool, because picking Tampa Bay, you have to have a low confidence number. If you're going to pick Tampa Bay in an upset like me, you've got to put a low number in the confidence pool. And putting Tampa Bay down at 1 on that probably just seems like the smartest and most safe move on my end. So I'll do that, and I'm going to put Jacksonville over Cincinnati at 8 in this pool. So I still got numbers 12 through 9. It's not really loading, but we'll move on to the next game with the Adobe Shockwave Flash thing not responding. But I'm going to go with 8 for Jacksonville and 1 for Tampa Bay. Next game features the Rams and the Giants. And with the Giants benching their best corner, Janoris Jenkins, suspending him from the team, I was going to pick the Giants in the upset, but with Janoris Jenkins being suspended, that's a huge loss for the Giants, and that's what's going to push the Rams over the top this week. Goff and Gurley, this team's averaging 30 points a game. I think the Giants can limit them to 21 with their defense, but Eli Manning doesn't have enough weapons to bail him out, so I think that works in the Rams' favor, and everyone is taking the Rams on Draft Utopia. This is the second lock of the week, and with the Rams going on the road, I'm not sure if this is going to be a high lock or a low lock, because I am looking over the other locks to see what other locks we had on the site, because this is one of those things where, okay, we had 3 locks, I believe. We had 4 locks. 3 of the locks are home teams, and this is the only home team. Never mind, we had 5 locks, 3 home teams and 2 away teams. So knowing that now, 5 locks, 3 home teams, 2 away teams, this being the first of the home teams, I'll probably adjust some things. I'll move Jacksonville to 7. I'll move Tampa Bay to 1 on the confidence pool. I'll put the Rams at 11 out of the other road team is the Raiders going to Miami. So maybe I'll put the Rams at 10 and play it cool. But yeah, we'll put the Rams at 10. So we've got 5 picks up in the confidence pool, and I'm going with the Rams, 21-13 over the Giants. What do you think of this game, Ryan?
I'm actually going with the Rams as well. I have a huge confidence in Jared Goff, especially playing on the road.
I mean, the Rams are averaging 30 points a game statistically, so it's hard to go against them.
Well, that and the fact that even though the Giants have been playing on a hot streak, I feel like eventually that hot streak's going to come to an end, especially with a team that seems to be destined right now. I know that's kind of like a hard and interesting word to be using this early in the season, but that team really does seem to be destined to at least go to the second round in the playoffs.
I mean, they might. I think if they draw the right team, they could get to the second round. And that's the scary thing. It's like, if the Packers end up coming back and Rodgers and we get the Rams and Packers in a wild card, Joe Buck's going to remind people how Goff went to Cal just like Aaron Rodgers, and it's basically going to be Joe Buck kissing up to Aaron Rodgers the entire game, and it's going to be brutal.
Oh, good old Aaron Rodgers and Joe Buck, I swear, man.
And the Rams are one of the final six teams on NFL Big Brother, which is rare because NFL Big Brothers accurately predicted the first two Super Bowls. Season 1 featured Carolina and Denver, which was the actual Super Bowl 50 matchup, and Season 2 featured the Patriots over the Lions, and the Patriots won Super Bowl 51 as well. So the Rams are in that final six, which means they might get to the divisional round. We'll see. It's a wait-and-see process type of thing if that holds up. And the next game, I believe, is the Atlanta Falcons and the Carolina Panthers. Matt Ryan is his weapons back without Ryan Khalil at center. Poe and Grady Jarrett are going to do a good job getting pressure on Cam Newton at defensive tackle. Carolina has an advantage, though. Takaris McKinley left the game injured last week. Cam Newton's going to have more time in the pocket. Both of these teams have formidable defenses. Carolina might be getting Greg Olsen back to pair with the tight end that's filled in for them and Ed Dixon. And the Panthers are 2-point favorites on the point spread. I'm actually going Carolina 28-27, and only one writer on the site picked Atlanta, and that was Jason Bannell. Everyone else is going with Carolina in this game. So I'm pretty confident Carolina will win at home. I'm going to put them down at either 7, I think, or 6 on the confidence pool. I'm going to put them at 6 out of 13 on the confidence pool and pick the Panthers to win this game straight up as they beat the Falcons in a shootout. But the Falcons cover the spread because I only have Carolina winning by a point. But the thing is, 54% of Yahoo users are picking the Falcons to win this game, which is pretty crazy when you consider that 4 out of 5 people on our site have the Panthers winning at home.
Not crazy, because I am one of those crazy people. If that's the case, I'm going to take Atlanta over the Carolina Panthers in this game, and I can see Atlanta actually winning probably 31-28. I think it'll be close just because it's at Carolina, but I think Atlanta wins. So I even got the confidence of 10 out of 13.
Interesting. I mean, I usually post the predictions on the site, but I never set the picks for the Pick'em League until like Friday because of my busy schedule, and I figured, why not set the picks during the podcast? I could do a Google Hangout showing people what I'm doing, but I'm not going to do that because we got a lot of things we need to get to. Denver and Philadelphia, it's in Philadelphia, and Emmanuel Sanders, according to sources, has already been ruled inactive for this game on Twitter. So if Denver wins, it's going to be due to Miller and Shane Ray getting pressure with Jason Peters out. I think Denver can still win this game even without Peters at left tackle because they got Jay Ajayi from Miami. They can run the ball. They can wear this defense out. And Carson Wentz is going to win a chess match at quarterback versus Brock Osweiler. I wish they would start Paxton Lynch, the other quarterback drafted in the same year as Carson Wentz, but they're going to go with Brock Osweiler. Translation, it's probably going to be a disaster because Brock Osweiler is starting. So, and the Eagles are a lock, one of the 5 locks of the week on Draft Utopia. So, with them being in that position, I'm actually going to put Philadelphia at 12 out of 13 in our confidence pool here.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, as a Broncos fan, I want to sit there and say the Broncos are going to win, of course, but as a sports analyst, you're starting Brock Osweiler, and Trevor Siemian was definitely the better choice. I mean, obviously, he went to the Texans, and then he got cut by the Browns, Brock did, but I really still don't have very much confidence in him. So I'm going to say that Philadelphia might end up with a 2-pick game. I think Brock Osweiler cost the Broncos the game in a very typical way. I feel like there's a lot of frustration as well in the locker room based on some of the local news reports as well. So I'm actually going to say that Philadelphia might be able to really open this one up and go about 31-15.
Yeah, only 4% of Yahoo users are taking the Broncos in this game. But I've got Philadelphia at 12 out of 13 in the confidence pool, and I believe this is the 6th game we've covered, maybe the 7th. But the next game features the Baltimore Ravens and the Tennessee Titans. It's in Tennessee. The Titans are a 5.5-point favorite. They get 2 home games against the Ravens and Bengals, and then they get the Steelers. So I actually think the Titans are going to keep this run up that they've had. They were at 3-3. They lost to Miami, I think, to fall to 2-3 at one point. But I think what's going to happen with the Titans is they're going to keep this winning streak up, and they're going to find a way to finish 12-4, and they're going to lose one more game this year. So I'm gonna say that the Titans, this is where the run begins. They've got 2 consecutive home games against Baltimore and Tennessee, and I think they're going to win both of them. Their defense with Arakpo and Morgan is going to get pressure on Joe Flacco. This defense is more lethal than the defense that went and injured Flacco. So I think the Titans win this 28-17 by 11 points, and they're 5.5-point favorites. Only one other writer, Jesse, is picking the Ravens in the upset.
Yeah, I can see the Ravens winning, but at the same time, I'm actually just gonna stick with the Titans.
I mean, Corey Davis is coming back from his injury too. He hasn't played since week 2, and he's expected to play this week. I know.
Well, I mean, that's gonna give them an advantage. But I mean, I feel like the Ravens had a confidence game, but I mean, right now, I feel like the Texans are just a playoff-ready team.
The Titans are a playoff-ready team. So are the Texans. I mean, this AFC South is the parity division right now, and you look at where some of these teams stand, and I'm gotta go with 10 game for certain reasons. And
well, the other but though is, do you trust Tennessee's quarterback?
I have more faith and confidence in Tennessee's quarterback as well. So I'm gonna go with Philadelphia at 12, and then I think Tennessee at... I really don't want to put Tennessee at 5, but I've got Jacksonville over Cincinnati at 7, Baltimore, and there's some other games where the confidence pool is just... Because I know Seattle, Washington was a lock, as well as Oakland, Miami, so I'm just trying to get this right in terms of systematically trying to get every game possible. There's a lot of 4-1 games in terms of popularity, so I could either put Carolina at 4, or I might put Carolina at 4 and move the Titans up to 6 in terms of the confidence pool, because we've already got... The fact that less than 50% of the Yahoo users have Carolina winning kind of scares me, whereas the Titans are 78% favorite on Yahoo. So I'm looking at that and I'm saying, well, maybe I should put the Titans at 6 and the Panthers at 4. But moving on to the next game, which is the first afternoon game, we have the Cardinals taking on the Niners, and this is another upset. I bet Hart's going to start over Garoppolo, even though I think Garoppolo should start. And it comes down to the offensive tackle play. Staley, Trent Brown, Garrett Gilliam, the swing tackle, are all dealing with injuries on the offensive line. This might be the only winnable game on the entire schedule for the Niners, since Arizona doesn't have Palmer or David Johnson. And San Francisco's the home team, so I think they might win this game. But it's going to be just like the Week 4 game. It's going to come down to a 2-point game, or it's going to go to overtime. I'm going to go 14-12 Niners over the Cardinals in a defensive game.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. I can see the Niners upsetting the Cardinals, especially if Jimmy Garoppolo starts.
Yeah, I mean, only 4... The other writers at Draft Utopia all unanimously took the Cardinals, so I am doing something gutsy, but if the Niners win, there's a payoff, because I'm only down by 1 on the overall leaderboard for picks this year, and that would give me separation. That would give me a 1-game advantage over everyone else. The next game features Washington and Seattle. While I was initially going to pick Washington, they don't have Trent Williams at left tackle right now. They also don't have Jordan Reed or their backup tight end Niles Paul. So that's going to limit the protection Cousins gets in the pocket, as well as the number of targets he can throw. And Seattle got a left tackle from Houston named Juan Brown, who's a 3-time Pro Bowler. So I think Seattle wins this game 27-17, and they're another lock this week.
I agree. I'll even say 24-17.
And with San Francisco, I'm probably going to put them at 2 on the confidence pool and Seattle at 11 out of 13 because I'm really confident in this Seattle team with the additions they've made.
Yeah.
Next up, we have the Kansas City Chiefs-Dallas Cowboys game, I believe. It's in Dallas. The Chiefs are 0-2 in games announced by Tony Romo, and Tony Romo is calling this game. It's the first game in the Cowboys Stadium that Tony Romo will be calling. And the Cowboys are favored by 1.5, even without Ezekiel Elliott. So I think the Chiefs win this, even though the Cowboys are favored. And Oren Shiri, who joined during our draft special, is the only person taking the Cowboys this weekend. Everyone else is picking the Chiefs unanimously. And this game was pretty close to being a lock at one point. So I'm going to say the Chiefs win. That defense is too high octane, and if Denver can put a bruising on the Cowboys, imagine what Kansas City's going to do to them without Ezekiel Elliott.
I honestly think that was just earlier in the season, that type of game. I actually think that the Cowboys can win. I think it's going to be 23-20. I think that the Chiefs keep the Cowboys in check, but I really think that you can't deny Dak Prescott.
Yeah, and then that leaves us with the Sunday night, Monday night games. We've got the Raiders and the Dolphins, and the Raiders are a unanimous lock for me in that game. I was going to go with the Dolphins at home, but without Ajayi and with Marshawn Lynch coming back from his suspension, I feel like the Raiders are extra motivated. The Raiders also got Bowman. They had linebacker issues. They now have Navarro Bowman, who they signed from the Niners, so I think that's another factor working in their favor. So I think the Raiders win that game now. And that is our final Draft Utopia lock of the week. So the Raiders win that game and they beat Miami.
Yeah, there's no way in heck that anyone can actually pick Miami. That team's a freaking mess.
I think I have Miami finishing like 5-11 in my overall projections for playoffpredictors.com. I have them at 4-5 overall here. Yeah, so I have them at 4-5 in terms of where I have them standing in terms of the games. And then the final game is the Monday night game between Detroit and Green Bay. Jesse took the Packers, even with Hundley starting off the bye week. But I'm going to go with the Lions. The rest of Draft Utopia went with the Lions. Yeah, I'm just getting some of the remaining picks up on Yahoo for the 1 p.m. games. I've got all the picks up in the confidence pool. Yeah, and so in Oakland, I have them winning by a final score of 20-10. And then the Monday night game features the Packers and Lions. It's going to be a defensive game. I got the Lions winning 14-13. You would think a game would be higher scoring than that. But I'm going to take Lions in a defensive game. I'm going to say this is a defensive game. So I'm going to take the Lions in a defensive game.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I can see the Lions winning.
It is.
I don't know if it'll be a defensive game though.
Alright, so that does it for the pick segment on the show. We got through everything in 5:33. I'm still trying to figure out how to get some of these picks up in the confidence pool. I'm going to give Ryan 7 minutes to talk about whatever he wants in the NBA, because I still want to get this straightened out. I mean, it really is frustrating that I can't get these picks up on Yahoo, and the Adobe Shockwave is saying this isn't responding. That's really frustrating for me. So I'm going to give Ryan the floor for the next 7 minutes to talk about anything in the NBA that he wants to talk about.
All right, so I guess let's go ahead and go over the schedule for tonight, November Charlotte. I'm going to go ahead and pick Milwaukee on that one. I think that Giannis is truly the next big superstar. However, never count Dwight out. I think he still has a pretty good game. I think he'll do 15-10. But that's just me, though. Then you have Indiana against Cleveland. Right now, Cleveland 2-4. I think if the Pacers send them to 3-5, then I think that LeBron James starts to show a little bit more frustration, and you'll start to slowly see that meltdown that I continue to talk about on some of the different forums. On the next game, Atlanta at Philadelphia. Normally I would pick Atlanta just because they're the more experienced team, especially going on the road. Sometimes home teams can get upset. But really, Philadelphia did the smart thing. And like I said, Ben Simmons would be a bust only if they left him at the forward position. They moved him to the guard position, and they put him at the real position he needed to play, which was point guard. That seems to really be paying well for them. Then you have Phoenix and Washington. Really close game, but I'm going to say Washington wins that all day. You have the Sacramento Kings against Boston. Boston seems to be playing on a hot streak as well. Kyrie Irving really showing why he was worth being able to pick up and everything like that for the Boston Celtics, especially after Gordon Hayward had gone down. You also have Chicago at Miami. I'm definitely going to pick Chicago on that one. You have Morey playing absolutely amazing basketball. He's really spreading that floor well for them. You have Orlando at Memphis. Orlando's been playing like fire lately. I'm actually going to go ahead and pick them just because they seem to have whatever kind of energy you can get to be able to really start picking up some wins. Minnesota at New Orleans. I'm still a little disappointed with how New Orleans is playing for having two of the bigger men in the NBA, especially the superstars that they have. So I'm starting to wonder really if it's become a coaching factor at that point. But I'm going to end up picking Minnesota in that one just because Karl Anthony Towns, Jimmy Butler, and Andrew Wiggins have a big three per se versus big two that New Orleans have. You have my pick of the East, Toronto playing at Denver tonight. Denver coming off a couple of tough losses over the past week, so I'm actually going to end up picking Denver to rebound. I think that they finally tie up their record 4-4. I think we'll go ahead and see Jokic get 25 points tonight. I think we'll see him get about 8 boards, and I'll even say probably maybe even 10 assists. Oddly enough, it seems that teams with a strong defense, I think Toronto is actually going to cause Jamal Murray to go 5 or 13 tonight. So I really don't expect too much for him. I think that the coaching, though, for Denver, I think their strategy, though, isn't even going to be for Murray to be too much of an offensive factor. I think his main assignment tonight is going to be just go ahead and cover the guards for Toronto. But like I said, though, Toronto playing very strong, and I'd like to point out as well that on our show that we did, that I did say that they would definitely be a strong number 2 or even 3 seed in the East. For whatever reason, a lot of people count them out. You also have Portland at Utah. Utah always plays pretty good at home. Portland's been playing with a streak, though. I'm going to go and take Utah on that one. You also have Dallas at the Los Angeles Clippers. Honestly, I don't know what it is, but the Clippers point guard has really seemed to make rookies struggle. Dallas struggling as 1-7. Dennis Smith Jr. kind of playing pretty good this year, but for the most part, after he kind of irritated that injury, he seems to kind of lack a little bit of some of the explosiveness, but he seems to be coming back. So I would go ahead and pick the Clippers on that one. As far as last night's NBA action goes, the Los Angeles Lakers beating Detroit. I kind of wanted to briefly touch on that one, mostly just because of how much talk I had hyped up with Lonzo Ball. Like I said, the kid's playing the kind of basketball that he needs to play. He's playing the defense, he's playing the offense, and he's running it smoothly. 6 of 13 last night. He went 1 of 3 from downtown. One thing I've noticed, though, is that at least his game's improving. He did have 6 rebounds, 3 assists. The assist column dropped a little bit, but, it's going to drop a little bit when you have such a strong backcourt like Detroit does with Andre Drummond. But, I really think that Lonzo Ball is going to be a pretty big star. I think he just needs to continue to play that basketball and just work on his jump shot. I mean, as soon as he can get that jump shot to drop consistently, he has everything else. He's getting the boards, he's getting the assists, but if you really watch his tape, though, he's really good at getting that fast break going, too. thoughts about the commentary, Chris?
I thought the NBA commentary was excellent. He did an awesome job breaking everything down with some of the players in the games. And I used Safari to get all the picks up for, instead of using Google Chrome, which I usually used, I used Safari to get the Yahoo picks up, and I got that done by 5:38. So I was listening to what you were saying at the end, and Cleveland's 3-4, which is just surprising to me. They play the Pacers tonight. That's going to be a big game. I feel like Okafor is going to get moved at the deadline. Boston has been 5-2, and they've been playing amazing basketball even without Gordon Hayward. And you've got, it's just a lot of big games are on tonight. In the NBA, I think the Bucks are probably going to beat the Hornets, like you said, but I just feel like both of these teams are very underrated, both Charlotte and Milwaukee. I mentioned Charlotte as a dark horse this year.
Charlotte really is a dark horse this year, but I still feel like they're playing pretty well. It's like they play good, but they fall short. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to get a quick, it's been 1 month of hockey. I'm going to get a quick NHL update. The top three in the Metropolitan, the New Jersey Devils and the Columbus Blue Jackets tied at 16 points. The Devils have played 2 less games. And the Islanders, Lisa's favorite NHL team, the New York Islanders, have come out of nowhere to jump the Pittsburgh Penguins for 3rd place in that division. So they are on a 2-game winning streak. They got 6 goals in the Vegas Golden Knights. And Pittsburgh and Philadelphia currently occupy those final 2 wild card spots with the Red Wings tied and the Bruins starting to get back to their form. So the Capitals are on the outside looking in. We both said the Capitals were going to be a letdown team this year, but overall, any thoughts on these standings? I think New Jersey and Tampa Bay have both surprised people. I know a lot of people picked Tampa Bay in the East, including Barry Melrose of ESPN, but I did not think they would come out of the gate with 21 points. I'm a little bit surprised by that. I'm surprised that Toronto is at 14. I'm even shocked that Ottawa, who didn't have Carlson for the first week of the season, is in 2nd place in that division. I shouldn't be, but the Eastern Conference, the Penguins should be a top 3 team. They're tied with the Islanders. I think momentum will pick up for them, but they're on a 2-game losing streak, and they allowed 5 goals to Winnipeg. So the Penguins and Bruins have probably been the biggest disappointments, and I picked both teams to meet in the Eastern Conference Finals. So I think the big surprise, though, has to be the Devils with Nico and Hall, with them winning that division after 1 month.
All right. I have to say this. In the Eastern Conference, it looks like, Tampa Bay seems to be playing pretty well. That kind of surprised me a little bit, to be honest. I was really shocked by New Jersey. I'm glad that they're playing well. To be honest, though, I think that the Penguins are going to bounce back. I think they'll end up jumping the Islanders. I think the Flyers can jump them. I think the Capitals can straighten up things a little bit better. I think they might be able to at least give the Islanders some competition. The Hurricanes struggle. The Rangers are struggling. And then, of course, you have the Senators. They seem to be in neutral as far as cruise control goes, but they're holding it down. The other thing, though, too, I was a little disappointed, though, with the Florida Panthers. 4-6 right now.
Yeah, I thought the Florida Panthers would actually be one of these dark horse teams, but they have been a huge disappointment. The Capitals, the Bruins were teams I had going to the playoffs. I had the Carolina Hurricanes in the playoffs as well. Pittsburgh, Philadelphia were preseason picks of mine to make the playoffs. Ottawa was a preseason pick to make the playoffs, and Columbus. So 4 of the 8 teams in the Eastern Conference were preseason picks of mine to make the playoffs. I had the Devils picking in the top 5, top 10 of my NHL mocks. So, hey Thomas, what's up?
Sorry I called in so late. I was going to call in, and I got sidetracked, and I forgot.
Yeah. We'll quickly mention the Western Conference here because Brian and I talked about the NFL, and we were going over the NHL standings after 1 month. The Blues are in 1st place in the Central Division. They're Brad Noble's team. You got Winnipeg. They scored 7 goals on the Penguins. They're in 2nd place. And then the Dallas Stars, my team, currently occupying that number 3 spot in that division. And then the specific top 3 is the Kings, the Vegas Golden Knights, the expansion team with Marc-Andre Fleury from the Penguins, and Vancouver. And the strange thing is, I had Vancouver and Vegas both picking 1 and 2 overall in my NHL mock draft, Ryan. Yet here they are in the division. And I had the Devils as one of my top bottom 5 teams as well. So 3 of my bottom 5 teams from the preseason are actually in the playoff picture after 1 month, which just shows how terrible I am at picking hockey compared to the NFL. But the biggest disappointment in this Western Conference has to be the Edmonton Oilers, because this was my preseason pick to win the Stanley Cup. Nashville's currently sitting outside the playoff picture as well, behind the Colorado Avalanche, so them and Edmonton have to be the 2 biggest disappointments. Heck, even the Blackhawks have been disappointing. They're only at 12 points.
Chris, I gotta say this. I think that I can actually see the Dallas Stars possibly making a trade with the Coyotes before the trade deadline.
Yeah, the Coyotes' best player is defenseman Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and Dallas, their weakness is defense, so they could package a deal to try to get him, because he's a veteran, he's a great player, and that's the kind of player Dallas needs in order to take their defense.
Well, because hear me out, I feel like if they did that, that would help jump them into second, and they would pass the Jets.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Blues are playing great. The Kings are off to their best start in recent memory. We could see the Lightning Kings Stanley Cup. I'm not ready to write off Edmonton and some of these other teams because this Western Conference is very interesting right now. And the only team I'd write off at this point is the Coyotes because I had them in my bottom 10. I mean, Edmonton at 7 points was my preseason pick to win the Cup. Minnesota at 10 points was my preseason pick to win the President's Trophy. They've been disappointing. I had Calgary as a top 3 team in their division. They've been disappointing at 12 points. Chicago's at 12. Nashville's at 12. Colorado's at 12. San Jose's at 12 with one of the wild cards. So you technically have 5 teams with 12 points vying for that wild card along with Minnesota and Edmonton, who I was both high on in the preseason. So the Western Conference is a lot more interesting than the East because you have so many teams that we thought would be playoff teams as well as teams that I thought would be bottom 5 teams leading their divisions. So the Western Conference is a lot more interesting for that reason. Are the bottom 5 teams going to hold on or are they going to choke? But right now the Coyotes are easily the worst team in hockey right now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's no question about it. Anyone who thinks differently definitely hasn't even paid remotely any attention to hockey.
All right. That's that.
Hey, guys, I got a question real fast.
Go ahead.
How much time we have left on the podcast?
We were going to end the podcast at either 6 or 6:30. I think there's like 2 segments left, maybe 3. I was thinking we'd go over the college football playoff. We'd preview the pitching matchup and the batting matchups for Game 7 of the World Series, and then maybe I'll reveal the top 5 picks in the new MLS Mock Draft that I'm working on. Because you can pick which topic we discuss first. We can go over the playoff picture because ESPN unveiled their college football playoff picture in last night's special. We haven't touched on that yet, so I'm guessing you're going to want us to open up with that.
Is there any thoughts you guys talked about on some earlier?
We went over NFL picks on the beginning of the show. Ryan and I went over the NFL picks for 30 minutes.
Oh, so I didn't miss too much, anything important.
No, but on Friday's show, we're going to do an Insult Master segment where you troll Bills and Jets fans because we know you're a Dolphins fan and you're going to love it. And we're going to judge which insults are better.
I love Bills fans.
Yeah, Mark's a Bills fan. You still love Bills fans?
Not him. I love the crazy ones.
All right. I like the passionate ones, like Scott Fav. He's really cool. But I like the knowledgeable Bills fans, the crazy ones. You're talking about the Bills fans who get rough and try to screw during the games or before the games. That's what you're talking about, Thomas.
The ones who jump on fire on tables that are lit on fire and stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
They hold a special place in my heart. All right, let's get going.
All right, the college football playoff is going to be tonight, and the college football playoff was unveiled last night. We can talk about that, or we can preview Game 7 of the World Series.
Yeah, I can't believe there's only 4 games left of the college football season.
All right, so college football it is. We'll go with college football first before we get to baseball. And the top 4 is unveiled. Georgia's at number 1. Alabama's at number 2. Number 3 team in the polls was Notre Dame, which I'm not sure they deserve to be that high. They definitely deserve to be in the top 5, but I also feel like the hype they're getting is a little bit excessive.
They can't pass for shit.
I mean, they got a great running game. They've got great offensive linemen. They've got Equanimeous St. Brown, but their quarterback play is very inconsistent. So I feel
they can't
like
throw the ball.
Yep. So for that reason, I'm really leaning towards Notre Dame, because Notre Dame plays Miami in a few weeks, and Miami got placed at number 10, even though they're unbeaten and 7-0. They got placed at number 10. So the pollsters are thinking they're going to slip up against Virginia Tech and slip up against Notre Dame and drop out of the picture entirely. However, if they beat both of those teams, they're going to have a very compelling case to move up to number 5, where the number 4 team, Clemson, is. And then if they beat Clemson in the ACC Championship, the committee will say, you know what? They beat Virginia Tech. We didn't expect them to win in Blacksburg. They beat Notre Dame. They beat another team in Clemson who was our favorite to win the ACC. So they're in. They're unbeaten. They're in. So that's the thing with Miami. And number 4 team in the polls was Clemson. So despite losing to Syracuse, they're still in the top 4. And then number 5 was Oklahoma. And Baker Mayfield was saying, Ohio State doesn't deserve to be ahead of us because he saw the coaches poll and he knows Oklahoma beat Ohio State. But then the selection committee put Oklahoma ahead of Ohio State. So Baker Mayfield's rant on that was completely pointless because Oklahoma got ahead of Ohio State. And Ohio State's now at 6. Penn State is at 7. So any thoughts on this so far? Because I think Wisconsin might be at 7 ahead of Penn State, but any thoughts on this overall picture? Because
my question is I know Georgia's good, but I'm surprised they're ahead of Alabama. I don't understand why Alabama's good.
Yeah, I am surprised by that as well. And they have just announced sites for 2021 through 2024. So Houston's going to get the 2024 playoff. 2022 is going to go to Lucas Oil Stadium. So, yeah, I mean,
And then I think Notre Dame is overrated. I mean, they don't have a passing attack. Wimbush is a great runner, but
I feel like they will have a passing attack in a few years once Jurkovec gets the starting job, but are they going to have an offensive line to protect him by that point that's as good as this one? That's the thing.
Yeah.
Because right now, Georgia's at 1, Alabama's at 2, Notre Dame's at 3, Clemson's at 4, and then Oklahoma and Ohio State are the first 2 out. Penn State only fell to 7. TCU was ranked 8 after their loss to Iowa State. And unbeaten Wisconsin is number 9. And I feel like Wisconsin got snubbed. I know their strength of schedule is weak. Not playing Penn State or Ohio State in the regular season does hurt them. At the same time, they don't deserve to be number 9. Especially if they're 8-0. When you consider who else is ahead of them. TCU, Penn State, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Clemson, all have 1 loss. Whereas Wisconsin has no losses, and they're number 9 in the polls. But they are number 9 due to a weak strength of schedule. I think Wisconsin should be in the top 5, not in the top 4, but they should be in the top 5 or top 6, like right where Ohio State is. So I don't like that ruling. I think that was a terrible ruling.
Yep.
Wisconsin should be higher. And Oklahoma State's at 11. Washington's at 12. I want to see where Central Florida is ranked. Virginia Tech's 13. Auburn 14. Iowa State is 15. Mississippi State is 16. USC is 17. And Central Florida is 18. Licking the chops of Sam Darnold.
Central Florida should be higher than
They should.
USC.
They should be higher, but this is the thing. The other teams ahead of them are going to kill each other. Teams in the Big 12, they're going to knock each other out. So, Central Florida, the Big 12 teams knock each other out, USC loses again. Central Florida is going to move up to potentially maybe the top 10, perhaps even up to number 5, but then the committee's going to screw them at the end if they go unbeaten.
I know. Central Florida is probably the best mid-level team right now. I mean, they're playing some really good football. I just love Scott Frost.
But outside of those top 8 teams, top 18 teams, I can't see anyone else making the playoff. Even if LSU beat Alabama, I still don't think it's enough at this point. So.
Yeah.
And I think Clemson and Notre Dame are the most vulnerable of those top 4 teams.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma's better than Clemson. I think Clemson's really, really overrated this year.
I think Clemson got ahead of them simply because they beat Oklahoma in the playoff 2 years ago, and the committee's taking that into account.
I know.
Even though Oklahoma is the better team now.
Yeah. And they're talking about something from 2 years ago.
Yeah, Ryan, what are your thoughts on this playoff selection committee here?
Honestly, I haven't looked too much into it, just because it just came out. But I do agree with the thoughts on Oklahoma, especially after how Baker Mayfield played, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the only loss came to Iowa State, who's moved all the way up to 15. And Oklahoma's going to be playing Mason Rudolph this Saturday. That's going to be a huge game at Oklahoma State. And then they get TCU the next week. So if they win both of those games, I think they're going to have enough of a case to move into the top 4. But as I said, these teams could easily kill each other and knock each other out of the playoff picture. Like, they could set it up so that Oklahoma wins a game, loses a game, and none of the Big 12 teams go to the playoffs. That's what I mean by the Big 12 teams killing each other. Like, they could beat each other to the point where none of the Big 12 teams would be ranked high enough to crack the playoff.
Yep.
I feel like that's what's going to end up happening unless Baker Mayfield runs the table.
And that's where the UCF thing comes into play, like you said. All Florida really has to do is beat Southern Florida, and they are a far superior team.
Only games Ohio State's suspect to are Iowa and Michigan. The rest of their games are winnable. Penn State, the rest of their games are winnable. And if Ohio State loses those 2 games and Penn State wins out, Penn State could still make the Big Ten title. Wisconsin's going to go unbeaten in regulation, probably lose the Big Ten to either Ohio State or Penn State. Most likely Ohio State, but they'll move up in the polls regardless on a weekly basis. Miami, if they lose to Virginia Tech and Notre Dame, let's say Miami loses to Virginia Tech but beats Notre Dame, they would lose value in the polls. Washington, if they lose the Pac-12 championship to a team like USC, they lose value as a playoff team. Virginia Tech, they lost to Clemson. That's their only loss, so they don't have any playoff value. Iowa State, they lose another game to a Big 12 team, they lose value. Auburn loses to Bama, they lose value. Mississippi State loses, they lose value. USC could move up, but at the end of the day, Central Florida will jump them if enough breaks go their way. So Central Florida could move up if the teams ahead of them knock each other out. I don't know if it'll be enough for them to make up the playoff run, but it can happen.
Oh, yeah.
So this is going to be very interesting to see how the rest of the season unfolds. They even have a countdown to when the playoff is going to be announced. 60 days, 20 hours, 9 minutes, 51 seconds. So we're 60 days away from the actual, or is it 60 days until the playoffs actually start? Because New Year's Day is when they're supposed to start. I think that's the angle here. 60 days until the games begin, not until the playoffs are finalized. All right. we'll quickly get into the World Series here and end the show with my top 5 picks in the MLS Super Draft. Okay, tonight's World Series features Lance McCullers Jr. and Yu Darvish pitching for the Astros and Dodgers. McCullers is 1-0, 2.95 ERA. Yu Darvish can have an ERA of under 2, but he can also have an ERA of over 4. Like, his ERA is all over the place. And both the Astros and Dodgers said they're going to use their best pitchers, Keuchel and Kershaw, out of the bullpen, which is an interesting twist, Ryan, with those two pitchers coming out of the bullpen. That definitely spices up this game to the point where it's like a marathon or a decathlon, and whoever lets their guard down to these batters is going to be the team that loses. That definitely spices this thing up. I'll go with the Dodgers, but I sort of feel like the Astros will win, only because the Dodgers were my preseason pick to win the NL pennant. I had them losing to Cleveland in 7, so either way, I'm sort of going to be right. I didn't think Houston would be this good, but they got Verlander, and that changed their dynamic. So I'll go with the Dodgers, but I would not be surprised if Houston won this game, because this is, in all my years of predicting sporting events, this is without a doubt the toughest sporting event I've had to call. Without a doubt, the toughest sporting event.
There's no doubt that Houston's going to close it. No doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why everyone's down in Houston. I mean, LA's been unbeatable this year, but just Houston's used so much momentum to get there, and they've taken it out this far. They got this.
LA had the momentum last night, though. Coming back.
Yeah, if the Dodgers lose this World Series, it'd be their 13th loss in the World Series, and 13th is the 7th prime number. Maybe that's a cue that the Astros win this. Plus, the Dodgers, Magic Johnson guaranteed the Dodgers would win in 7. The SI cover from 2014, they said in 2014, they said Houston would win the World Series in 2014. There was an SI cover with George Springer on it. So I feel like if the Astros win, it's going to be due to him, George Springer, hitting that game-winning home run. There were also 2017 championship rings that the Fresno Grizzlies, the AAA team, sold. Like, they sold these fake Astros championship rings. So a lot of people have predicted that the Astros would win it in 2017. So this could honestly go either way.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Real quickly, off topic, can I just say my thoughts on the Ajayi trade?
Go ahead, Thomas. We can talk about the NFL trade deadline, too, before we get into the MLS, because there were some big trades yesterday, and we've ignored that for the first hour.
The Kelvin Benjamin trade was a head-scratcher. I don't really understand that one at all. Bill's got a weapon, so that's nice. Anyway, with the Ajayi thing, that was understandable. Ajayi was a head case and a cancer to Adam Gase. They were beefing on the sidelines constantly. Ajayi was never satisfied when he got the ball or when he didn't get the ball. And
I saw that.
And he wasn't a team player, so... And plus, his knees are a ticking time bomb. He was one wrong step away from a medical retirement, so... He's expendable. And, honestly, he is a good and talented back, but I don't think he's top 10. So, that's another thing. He wasn't a franchise back because of his knees, and he was inconsistent. His vision kind of sucked, and he has terrible. So, I can see if Dolphins fans are all mad about it and freaking out about it. Because they're like, oh, he carried us to the playoffs last year with 3 200-yard games. No. He had 3 200-yard games, and then what did he do the rest of the year? Inconsistent as fuck. So, he needed to go.
mean, I just never saw that, but I feel like he should have been kept and then bring in a running back next year to develop underneath training camp and all that, and then go ahead and trade him.
Well, we still got some out of it, whether it was a fourth pick or not. Something, so.
Yeah, I mean,
very true.
It's going to be interesting to see how this happens because it's a pretty big World Series for both teams. The trade deadline, Kelvin Benjamin, the Bills won that trade. Like, all the Monday trades were evenly trades. Brown to the Seahawks, Garoppolo to the Niners. Those were evenly matched trades. Now, the Tuesday trades were all rip-offs, Thomas. The Eagles won the trade with Miami. The Bills won the trade with Carolina. And I'd say that those were the only two big trades on Tuesday.
But I wouldn't say they won.
What?
I wouldn't say they won. They got a cancer to their last locker room.
Kelvin Benjamin, though, could be a number one target. He might do better in a change of scenery.
Yeah.
And they only gave him a third and a seventh. So they kept their 2 second-round picks. They kept their 2 first-round picks. Mission accomplished.
I don't know if you guys noticed this, but Adam Gase is taking the Bill Belichick approach to his team.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Miami pans out. I gave them Lamar Jackson in the new mock draft that came out today on the site.
Yeah, I know you told me.
And then I gave them Nick Chubb, and then I gave them Wyatt Teller in the 3rd round. I feel like if they went that route, their offense would be far more lethal. But I'll get to my top 5 picks in my MLS mock really quickly before we wrap up the show, because I looked at the formations of some of the teams, and I think that could dictate things too. Number 1, LAFC, Tomas Hilliard Arce out of Stanford. They've had 11 shutouts this year in college soccer, and Hilliard Arce has great tape versus John Baquero, who many consider to be the number 1 prospect. So I'm going Hilliard Arce at 1 still. Number 2, LA Galaxy. I'm going to go John Baquero here because they've got a right winger with double-digit goals. They've got a goal scorer in Dos Santos, who's coming off a rough year. But they don't have a central midfielder or a left winger. And John Baquero, 11 goals, 13 assists for Wake Forest. He can provide that. And Top Draw Soccer has Baquero as their number 1 overall prospect. So I think the Galaxy get him at 2 because he struggled against Hilliard Arce on tape. And I think Magic Johnson wants that championship pedigree as an investor of LAFC. So I think Baquero goes to the Galaxy at 2. But once they get him, they form an offense that was lethal like the Galaxy had when they had Beckham and Donovan back in the day. I think they form that offense. They still need to figure out how to get defense. I could also see them trading the pick for allocation money that would allow them to sign an international player. But seeing how disastrous the Ashley Cole move was, getting him from Arsenal and Chelsea, I don't think they go that route. Number 3, DC United, they use a 1-5-4 formation. This is what I mean. 1 forward, 5 midfielders, 4 defenders. DC United's leading goal scorer has 5 goals. If they were smart, they would take a Gallagher or a Gordon Wild or an Albert Ruiz type player. But they have Patrick Mullins, who had 4 goals in a game, and they're happy with him, even though he only finished the year with 5 goals. They're happy with him, and that's why they're going to remain a mediocre team. So I think they go Sergei Nuss out of Virginia, and they bolster the defense. Even though it could be a boomer bust type pick with Nuss. I think the smartest thing DC could do in that situation is get Gallagher, maybe switch things up to a 2-4-4, but they run a 1-5-4 like the Galaxy. So I think both the Galaxy and DC United will focus on either midfield or defense since they're happy with their 1 forward, even though both teams would be smart if they took Gallagher. Number 4, Gallagher goes to Montreal with the pick they got from the Colorado Rapids. They run a 3-forward set, and they have 2 good forwards, so they can take the best one on the board in Gallagher, plus he's the best player on the board. And then at number 5, Minnesota United FC, they go Tim Kubel. Christian Ramirez had 14 goals for Minnesota, and they drafted Abu Denladi at number 1. And he's a good secondary striker with their 2-4-4 formation, so I think Minnesota's not looking at midfield. They're not looking at forward. Their center backs are okay. They need outside backs, though, and Kubel out of Louisville is considered a unanimous top 5 prospect. So I think they go with Kubel in this situation at number 5 and bolster their defense. I haven't posted any other picks for Friday's MLS mock to the site, but any thoughts on that top 5 so far? Because I think this is a very top-heavy defensive group, but it's very thin afterwards, and then after Gallagher, we're going to start to see that run on the strikers.
Well, my team is the Galaxy, or one of my teams is, you know that.
Yeah, the Galaxy's my team too, Thomas, and since they run a 1-5-4 with 5 midfielders, 4 defenders, 1 forward, I feel like they're going to stick with Dos Santos and get a midfielder if their right wingers are a leading scorer.
Yeah.
Because that'll make the offense lethal. They'll have to game plan around 3 guys, Dos Santos, their leading scorer from last year, and then the Vaquero, who are all capable of having 10 goals, 10 assists. And if you have 3 guys that are capable of having 10 goals and 10 assists, stopping your offense goes from being easy to an extreme pain in the ass. And I think the Galaxy will realize that, and they'll get Vaquero at 2.
Yeah, I don't know much about those guys, but I agree.
I mean, I know that it's a very top-heavy forward draft, Ryan, and I loved interviewing Ruiz. He was awesome, but there's other strikers that have capitalized on goal scoring during his injury, so I don't know where he's going to go. I still think he's a first-round talent, but I'm just not sure where he's going to end up in this top 23. And I remember Nick DePaie dominated his first 3 years at UC Santa Barbara. He struggled as a senior, and he ended up falling to the Montreal Impact at number 19. I don't know if that's where we're going to see Ruiz drop or if he's going to go in the top 10. It's too early to say at this point, but I think it's a very top-heavy defensive group, and teams are going to reach for defenders because it's not a deep defensive group, whereas it's a deep forward group, and you can get forwards later in this draft. And I think that's one thing that works in the advantage of some of these MLS teams, Ryan. I don't know if you'd agree or disagree with that, but that's sort of how I see it playing out. Teams in the top 11 are going to look at their formations and what's best for them, and then we're going to see a run on strikers after that, where the playoff teams get even more goal scorers. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's possible.
So the rich get richer, kind of like the NFL draft, because there's just some teams every year in soccer where they make excellent picks, like Seattle, and they just get even better. So I feel like we're going to see some of that this year. It's sort of like with the NFL, too. The Patriots, Steelers, Packers always draft well. So I feel like we're going to see more of that in soccer this year, too. And the 2018 MLS Super Draft takes place on January 10th, 2018, which is my 27th birthday, by the way. So that'll be fun. The MLS Draft will be on my birthday.
That would be cool. When is that?
That is on Friday, January 10th, 2018. And the MLS Combine will be that week. They'll probably have the Generation Adidas announcements leading up to the draft. And only one of the players in my top 5 is a Generation Adidas underclassman. A lot of these guys, I had them in my top 11 last year. A lot of these guys who are juniors, but they didn't get GA offers and they went back to school. So it's going to be a really interesting MLS draft class this year. And I'm probably going to work on picks 6 through 10. Maybe start Tony Mario's power rankings, because there's a lot of different things I can do. So I just want to thank everyone for tuning in. We do have the official draft order for the top 15 teams. And I've got the formations that each of the teams in the top 11 runs. So I'm studying that to try to make the most accurate mock as possible. And just want to thank everyone for listening. I'll be back tomorrow at noon. 9 a.m. Thomas's time to talk with Brian Luis about his mock draft as well as Game 7 of the World Series. And then on Friday at 2, you guys get to hear Thomas trolling Bills and Jets fans in a game of Insult Master. We'll also get his NFL picks, and we'll go through every team on my team needs board for FanSpeak. I have a FanSpeak draft board, and then I have a team needs board. So we're going to go through the team needs board, and we're going to go through all 32 NFL teams and try to pinpoint and identify their team needs to make our game on FanSpeak even better. So we'll do that on Friday, and it'll be a good show. Any final thoughts, Thomas, before we wrap up?
Live long and prosper, and stay classy, San Diego.
Ryan, do you have any final thoughts before we sign off from the utopia of sports?
Go Nuggets. Go Nuggets.
Go Blazers.
Go Nuggets, go Blazers, go Lakers, and enjoy your NBA action and World Series Game 7 tonight. So we'll be signing off. We'll be back tomorrow at noon with Brian and I, and then Ryan and Thomas will be back on Friday. So 4 episodes in 5 days. Sunday we'll be talking tight ends with Joey, but 4 episodes in 5 days, plus immediately following tomorrow's show, I'll message Joey about what time the Evolution Network, because Joey's doing a show tomorrow night as well. So a lot of shows for me to do. So it's going to be a big week, but I got all my work for this week done, like updating the site. So we just get to relax and podcast and talk a lot about sports. So I'm extremely fortunate that it worked out this way. But we're signing off from the Utopia of Sports. Enjoy Week 9 in the NFL and enjoy Game 7 of the World Series tonight on Fox. So long from the Utopia of Sports.
Call recording has been completed.